Welcome to the Nordic Mythology Podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, owner of the company Horns of Odin, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Mathias Nordvig.
Hello, everybody. This time we're joined by none other than Alexander Dreymon, whom you might know, I hope you know at least from The Last Kingdom, the Lord of Bebbanburg. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's really nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
It's been a long time in the making.
It has. We've been trying to do this for like 2 years now, I think.
Yeah.
But we finally got here. That's all that matters.
Well, first of all, I always listen to the podcast. Obviously, this is the first time that I have visual. Mm-hmm. And I feel like nobody's ever described you guys to the viewers enough.
Okay.
Like, Daniel, you're sitting on like a throne, surrounded by shields.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
A huge mic. You look pretty dope, man.
Thank you very
now
much.
The image has gone so small. I can't really see you that well anymore. And Matthias, you are way younger than I imagined.
No,
every time Daniel introduces you, it's like Dr. Mathias Nordvig, and you just know everything.
And I should have like this long beard.
We're totally the same age, right?
No, I think I'm actually much older than you think.
He just looks young. He's just got
I look young, yes.
So you do have a big white beard that you just tied with.
Yes. Yeah, no, I keep it hidden.
And he also has hair as much as you may.
I do actually have hair. This is not to hide my balding or anything like that.
For the first 75 episodes, he always wore a hat, and I just assumed he was bald. But
because you guys had never met in person before you started doing this together.
We still haven't.
We still haven't.
No way.
Yeah, I mean, COVID's kind of like stopped us.
COVID's a bitch. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So we'll be
this summer. The magic will happen.
August, we have.
But you have friendship tattoos already.
Of course.
So, I mean, we should do. We should. We need to get something. There's something there.
I feel very left out. You guys are totally inked up. And I actually have. I don't know if you can see this, but I did this when I was 8 years old.
Oh, okay, yeah, just about.
Nice.
With a needle that I disinfected in a candle, and I just started piercing away, and thank God it hurt a little bit too much to go too far.
Yeah. So at least you have a little reminder. Do you have any tattoos, or are you completely?
No, that's it. You just saw it.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Do you class yourself as tattooed?
Oh yeah, heavily.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it counts. Self done as well. All right, we have to talk about Last Kingdom, I think, to start with, and then we have a few fun topics I think we can discuss. Mathias is going to teach us a thing or two as well, as always. But yeah, I want to start with like the most obvious question for me is like, did you ever expect The Last Kingdom to get as big as it has? Because it just seems to have grown every series bigger and bigger and bigger until the behemoth that it is now.
Well, honestly, it doesn't feel like it is a behemoth.
Oh, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It is.
Stop being so nice and humble.
Well, we genuinely, I don't think ever really had any publicity on a grand scale, you know. So it's all been kind of word of mouth, and so it's kind of hard to gauge, especially living in Los Angeles, where you drive down Sunset and you have a poster up for every little show, and it kind of always felt like it's flown a little bit under the radar. It's a difficult question to answer, you know, because you're just there doing your thing, and especially, you know, we've just been talking about COVID. Like COVID kind of cuts you off from life so much that you don't really know what's going out there, because you haven't seen that many people, you know, in the last 2 years. I'm so excited that it's grown and that it has the amazing fan base that it has, because I think we are truly blessed with an extraordinary fan base. People are so loyal and excited and supportive, which is really rare, I think, to have that buoyancy on social media. That doesn't happen that much. I have not experienced much mean stuff out
Do you
there.
think
That's great. What actually, what do you think drives that, like, that supportive fan base? Like,
Oh,
is
I want
it-
to piggyback on the back of that because that's what my question was going to be as well.
Okay.
I was going to ask, do you think it's to do with the bromance between yourself, Arnas, and Mark? Because that is very prominent online and on social media, and I think it's so relatable and likable.
I think it does have something to do with that. And it's certainly the bromance between us, but also between the rest of the cast. We are a very tight group, and we just genuinely love each other, and I think that must come across.
Oh, it does.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
is. I mentioned this with Arnas. It's very clear on screen as much as on social media that you're all genuinely friends, and it is very likable and relatable, and it gets people involved. And particularly when you see, you three doing your little skits that you do on Instagram or wherever, you kind of
each other's ears.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. And you all just kind of can't help but like it and want to see more of it and support and follow. Yeah, I think that has to be one of the successes.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, yeah, it's awesome that it's grown into what it is, and it's nearly over now.
I know. How was that wrapping? Because obviously you wrapped up the final series. That must have been a surreal thing to go from putting so much time and effort into this thing and all these friendships, and it can't be easy, I'm sure.
To wrap it up, no, it was emotional, to say the least, for sure. It was wonderful to have this little last part, which was just a movie version, like the 2-hour special, which took a lot less time to shoot. So it was like an opportunity to see everybody again. Well, at least the ones that aren't dead. And
oh, I feel I was going to make a spoiler then for the series, but I'm not gonna. I just realized that maybe not everyone's seen the last series yet. But yeah, I guess that's true. You're only there for as long as you're alive.
Yeah, I think the show was filled for me, like the making of the show was filled for me with moments where I kind of had to pinch myself and where I realized that moment in time was one of the moments that I would remember on my deathbed. It was filled with moments that were just so special and full of heart and beauty, if not only because we're in gorgeous locations outside, but just with people that you're so close to. It was such an incredibly special experience. And while we were making it, I think we're all very aware that it was a rare thing, and that it's unlikely to happen again. But I think what we all take away from it is that it is possible to work under these circumstances, and it's kind of your job to create these circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that everybody is going to go on their way in their careers with the aim of continuing to work like that and continuing to have as much respect and love around on a film set or wherever it is that you're going to be working.
This is gonna. I'm gonna have to ask the question now. Are the days of the obnoxious lead character in a show sort of like over now? Like, we always hear those stories about, oh yeah, these particular actors, they hated each other on behind the scenes. Like, are those days over? Is everybody like sort of like coming around to much more
Dude,
teamwork.
I don't think they are, unfortunately, because
Oh,
for some reason, people like that keep working. I don't know why they get hired. I certainly wouldn't hire somebody who behaves like that on a set. But no, I don't think they're over, unfortunately.
that's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to hear these kinds of stories about any movie set, really, right?
But I think the saddest people in stories like that are the ones who are doing that, because there's just no way they're happy.
That's true.
No way.
Yeah.
So did you feel a responsibility as the lead to create that kind of environment for everybody else around? Because obviously you are the lead of the show. There is other big characters in there, but as that kind of like that front man, is that kind of a thing that a responsibility you felt?
Well, yes, I did in a way, but then it didn't feel like a responsibility, to be honest. I think you just behave with decency because that's what you do, whether you're the lead or whether you're a day player. And I think it's very important that the lead does behave in that way, because obviously it kind of trickles down. But then that's also the job of the director and of the producer, and it's kind of, you all try to keep the ball in the air. And it just gives you so much back, because of course there are days when you come in and it's tough for physical reasons around you, because it's because you haven't slept and it's freezing, and you've just fallen in the mud, and you're going to spend the rest of the day just freezing your balls off. But
or chipped your tooth, as you told us before the podcast,
or chipped your tooth. But then you just get so much from the people around you that are there to support you, or that give their best, nothing to do with you, that are just there to do a good job, but they're all into it. And you kind of feel like, okay, well, I feel like just checking out now and being a bit short with people and being in my own world. But then when you see somebody else who's been there the same amount of time than you have, or gotten up earlier, I mean, look at all the supporting artists alone that have worked on our show, and that I don't think get enough credit ever, because those guys, they're there before everybody else, because they have to stand in line and wait until it's their turn to get their costume and to get their hair and makeup done. And they drive themselves in the morning, and they spend the whole day out there in the cold, and they don't have an assigned costume person who runs in at the end of every scene to cover them up with a blanket or something. They're just doing their own thing, and those guys don't complain, like, ever. So if you see that, you kind of feel like, no, you can't just do your job.
Yeah. So I guess one of the other questions I have is, have you ever felt like, or do you feel a responsibility to the fan base in that way as well, to take time to reach out and speak to people, engage with people who listen? Because obviously that's kind of one of the ways that we met and started talking, was I made a horn for you, and you were very gracious. By far, of anybody, of like, you probably don't like this word, like celebrity status, I guess. Of anybody of that kind of stature, of all the people that I've been looking up to make things for, you were by far the most gracious. You had a torn ACL, and you wheeled yourself, or had yourself wheeled across the Excel Center, which is a big place, to come and say thank you. After the show, you took a picture and sent it to me via email and helped me with things with the show. And not many people, I feel, in that position would take the time to do those things to help somebody out. So yeah, do you feel that responsibility to kind of engage a lot more?
That's a really tricky question, to be honest, because
just say no, so I feel really special.
Well, again, like you gave me a present, and that was incredibly kind of you. Like, So I wanted to come and say thank you, and I felt like that was normal. So it didn't feel like a responsibility or a chore at all. Like I was genuinely interested in who is this guy who just gave me a present, which was gorgeous, and look what came of it, you know.
Yeah.
In terms of the responsibility, you know, in a world of social media, it is such a tricky line to walk in terms of engaging with people and also keeping your privacy. And keeping my privacy is very important to me, not first and foremost for myself, but for my family. I think it's so important for the people that don't really have a choice in the matter to be protected from public life. And at the same time, of course, you know, my career wouldn't exist without the fan base. So of course, yes, I have a responsibility towards that. And again, something that doesn't really feel like responsibility is something, you know, that I genuinely have the desire to share as much as possible and be present as much as possible. But then, you know, what form does that take? And so I'm still figuring it out, to be honest. I don't post a lot on social media. But when I do post, I put a lot of time and effort into a post, and I think about it. I try to, I give as much of my heart as I can when I post something. I'm hoping that is more valuable than posting a picture of my breakfast every morning. And you know, I don't know. I mean, it's a long debate, but
I think without a doubt that your Instagram is one of the ones that stands out for the fact that you do put so much time into it, and you do kind of, without getting too political, get it. You aren't afraid to comment on certain issues that maybe some other people might not want to, and it's clearly that you care about it, you think about it, and you put the time into it. And it's not, like you say, it's not just a case of taking pictures of your breakfast. It's genuine kind of care and engagement, rather than this flippant thing that you feel that you have to do just to tick a box, I guess.
Well, and you have to be very, very careful with your choices and choose your battles, I guess, because something happens every day where you're like, okay, these people need help, and they really do, you know. And if you post about everything that happens, then you kind of spread yourself thin, and I don't think you end up being very effective. So again, when I do post about something that is close to my heart, it doesn't mean that it's the only thing that's close to my heart, but you kind of have to make a choice about where to focus that part of your energy, I think. And where you can be the most effective, because, you know, I mean, you talk about like celebrity status and you know, all of that stuff. Like, in the scheme of things, I'm still a very small player, you know what I mean? And I think with the resources that I have, I want to have as much impact as possible. But then it's also about being aware of what resources you do have and what can be done with that.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. So, I mean, again, that's one of the things we've kind of bonded on in the past, is the same with like Horns of Odin. Again, it's a much smaller scale than what you have, even though you say you're a small fish. Then like what we do is even smaller, but we still kind of try and pick things that we can help with. It's always been a very big part of the business to try and help kind of charitable causes where we have the opportunity to. And like you say, it's picking where you can and where you feel you can help the most, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you know what that's like.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we try and learn some stuff from Matthias?
Yeah, let's try. What you got for us?
Well, you
What do you want to
mentioned
know?
you had we spoke briefly before. You had a question about Uhtred and his maybe lack of paying his men.
Right. So we have this running joke with Arnis and with Mark, who play Citric and Finnan respectively, and that Uhtred never pays them. He just doesn't pay his guys, and every time that they do a job, Uhtred's like, yeah, I'll put that on the card. Don't worry about it. I got you. But it never happens. So I was wondering, Matthias, like, how would a lord during that time pay his men? What form or shape would that take if he were inclined to do so, which Uhtred was not?
And they're always still so loyal to him.
Yes. Well, so there's this moment that we talked about earlier where Uhtred says to his guys, I don't have a fortress, I don't have a lot of wealth to give you, but if you do follow me, then what I can give you is reputation. How real is that?
Okay, so this is a very good question, and also it's a complicated one, and that is what we say on this podcast is complicated. It's complicated because of
I'm just looking at the comments here. The knowledge wave is coming.
That's it. They know by now what's going to happen. We're just not going to say anything for the rest of the episode.
So the reason that this is actually really complicated is because he is a lord without land. So that puts him, in this time period in a peculiar role, because on the one hand, he has his own reputation and his family name, which does mean something. It should give him certain rights. And on the other hand, he has been, dethroned essentially. His land has been taken from him, so he doesn't have the equity to go with his name, so to speak. And that's why he's, of course, saying this, like, I can't give you land and money, I can give you fame, right? So then we have to ask ourselves, well, was that reasonable currency back in this time period in Northern Europe? And it definitely was if you were a Viking, right? And this is where it becomes interesting, because he's got this, he's in this like gray area between Anglo-Saxon and Viking, right? He's got a little bit of influence from both, and this is where we then see sort of the cultural influence of the Scandinavian presence in the English area in the time, where such things as perhaps reputation start meaning more, and then also become part of actual currency in a sense. Because what is the next thing after reputation? Well, if you have a reputation, as and this is what we see in the saga literature all over, right? You're some kind of Icelandic Viking who shows up in Norway, and then you're like, I'm son of this and that, and then the Norwegian king is like, well, then you're cool, awesome. Or I have heard about you because you killed a bunch of people over here and waged war on these people over there, and so on. So reputation definitely goes a long way in Northern Europe in this time period, and I think that's actually a legitimate thing to offer in that sense. If you band with me, then you're definitely going to become known as some of the biggest, baddest warriors out there, and that in itself is then going to lead to money, essentially. So yeah, right. Absolutely
makes sense.
Yeah,
one of the things that I always loved in Bernard Cornwell's books, which is not something that we could really portray in the series that much, is how Uhtred would always pretend that he's somebody else.
Right.
He would always come along and be like, yeah, I'm Gustav Gustafsson, son of whatever. And people would be like, oh, wow, no way. And I guess because it was so completely possible during that time, there must have been so many imposters who just made up stories and paid skalds to write poems about them and then became kind of war heroes without ever having seen a shield wall.
Oh yeah, I am sure. I mean, you know, people who I mean, okay, so let's just dial that one back for a second. So there is a term in Old Norse which is lygisögur, which literally means lying sagas. That's a thing that they were well aware of back then. And you could see like kings and lords, they would call it out sometimes and say, oh, that's a great, you know, yarn you just came up with right there.
Right.
So they were definitely aware of that. And if you sort of like, when you start approaching all of this literature about all of these ancient Viking heroes with a little bit of a grain of salt and some critical thinking, then you also will quickly realize that most of these stories are more or less made up. Like even the ones that seem most historically accurate, like you can still pick them apart in between.
All embellished.
Yes, absolutely, right. And so, but then that then becomes the question. We can do that with most literature that has been written throughout the ages, and you can always, you know, you can critically review everything that you have from, say, like the American Civil War, and then you can apply a different theoretical perspective or something, and then you can say, well, actually the situation was more of this and this instead of that and that, and so on, right? So there's always a chance to, you know, deconstruct the vision or idea that we have of a certain era right now, right? Based off of how we approach the source material. As somebody who teaches about the Viking Age, it's of course important for me to always highlight to people to be thinking critically about these stories, because they're usually being used to like prop up the coolness of somebody's family or somebody's country, right? That's usually how this is being used nowadays. And it's like, yeah, on one hand, but also on the other hand, maybe not so much. maybe this particular Viking that you guys have like statues of everywhere, maybe he didn't even exist, guys.
Right.
Think about that for a second.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely would have just paid someone to embellish the stories about me.
Right.
Without a doubt, because why not? Like you say, it would have been so easy to do. Who's gonna fact check it? Like there's no.
You definitely would have. Look at you, you're drinking out of a coconut.
Exactly. I've got a coconut. So that's how it would be. I just if this would be a human skull if I was embellishing it.
He
Of course it
drank
would.
from his enemy's skulls.
Exactly, the coconut suddenly became a skull. So that's how these things work.
What are you drinking from that coconut, by the way?
Coconut water.
That's
It's just a regular coconut. It was in the shop. So why not?
I mean, sure, whatever, man.
It was in the shop. The coconut was there. It actually said genuine coconut on the label as well.
Do you want to
That
know
must be a genuine coconut.
A genuine coconut, and it had a little poker to make the hole and a straw that came with it. So I thought, why? It was a special occasion. Alex, you joined us. I was like, fuck it, get the coconut.
Thank you.
Get the
I
coconut.
love the coconut.
Do you want to know a weird little factoid about me and coconut? I hate it in all its forms. I cannot stand coconut, except for one particular type of candy that you can get in Denmark, which is called a Bounty bar, which is like a chocolate bar.
Oh, we have them
like,
over here, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way I can eat them.
When I was a kid. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
Like
much coconut in there, but
oh no. But
I mean, the chocolate makes the coconut much better.
It does.
Makes it helps out. Okay, so everybody in the chat's saying I have to explain the coconut, which didn't really want to have to do, but I'm gonna have to. Okay, so I bought a coconut maybe 30 episodes ago. I can't remember when it was. And said that when we reached 200 patrons, that I would do an episode in a coconut bikini, because I didn't think we were going to hit 200 patrons. But then we hit 200 patrons, and now I have to do the episode in a coconut bikini. So this coconut is going to become a coconut bikini for me to do.
You have, how many patrons have you got now?
We passed it, so it's like 215, 210, something like that.
Okay. And how long ago was that?
So I said, when did I mean, I said it maybe 6 months ago, but we were like on 130, so I thought I was safe.
Right.
And I forgot.
No, but how long ago did you pass the 200?
Oh, a couple of weeks ago. But I was gonna try buy one, but apparently it's really difficult to buy a coconut bikini. Didn't think it would be, so I'm gonna make one instead.
I would know how to make myself a coconut bikini, at least for the chest part. It gets more complicated for the bottom part.
It's just gonna be the top part. I might get a grass skirt for the bottom bit.
Really?
Might be a grass skirt.
Hold on. Let me just
Alex, don't get me in trouble.
Matthias, explain to Dan what bikini stands for.
Come on.
Means two. I think a bikini is by definition a two-part piece.
It is very much a two-part piece. Then
I'm so glad we didn't have this conversation before, because had I known this is how you'd react, I would have been talked into doing it on this episode. And
definitely
this episode by far is probably going to be the most watched, and I just don't want that.
Hey, so had I known, I would have made a coconut bikini for myself for this episode.
Me too, man. I would have been down.
I mean, that would have been a sight to see, wouldn't it? No, actually, Alex, you can't do it with us two, yeah, because just showing us up.
And a head of fruit.
A head of fruit, yeah.
Did not expect this to happen. So yeah, I'll make sure I let you know.
The good thing is you are sat down, so oh man, I'm having so many ideas about this bikini. Like, you don't even need to fix it. You can just since you're sat, you can just place coconuts on your lap.
Okay,
there you go.
It's risky.
I move around.
It's risky
quite a lot.
because they could fall down. Then you got to work a little harder.
I move.
Make that bottom.
It could just fall off. The episode could get demonetized because things are falling out. We don't want that.
Things are falling out. Yeah. You could get canceled. We could all get canceled.
Yeah, we could always get canceled.
We don't want to get you canceled for me flashing everybody. That's not how I want to. I want to end your career right there like that. Yeah, I'll let you know the episode so you can watch it at least.
I'm definitely gonna need a link to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll give you the live link so you can come watch live.
And
join in. All right. Should we talk about something more serious to stop me blushing?
Right. I was just getting ready to, but okay.
Oh, I mean, if you've got a coconut there.
No. I'll shake him. I'll shake him when I have coconuts up there.
Okay. Oh, there we go. All right. Matthias, you want to talk about the cultural significance of the Viking invasion in Anglo-Saxon England?
It's close enough, man. Well, I mean, so the whole premise of Bernard Cornwell's books, right, and also to show the Last Kingdom is, of course, the presence of these Scandinavians in England, right? And one of the cool things about his books is that he's actually, I feel like he's really good at like getting a feel for how it would have been in interactions between these peoples, right? Because they're very similar in many ways, but they're also very different in many ways, and that comes out really well in the literature. If you ask me, that's my personal opinion on it. Obviously, it's fiction, so there's also a bunch of things you can say like, oh, that probably wouldn't have happened that way or something like that. But that's how it always goes when we try to represent the past, as we just realized, right? But so what actually did happen? Right. So, I mean, we have this idea of like the Viking Age is like a bunch of like shield biting psychopaths in a boat that like, just sit there. They get get in the boat somewhere in Norway, and then they just sit there going like "arg" until they land in England, and then they go fighting with swords, and then they leave with all the gold and the women and all that stuff. But there's a couple of things that we first of all should consider, and that is that when these Scandinavian incursions start happening, they come as sort of a new development on basis of a very long period of interaction between the British Isles and the Scandinavian region. Like a lot of trade, for instance. I mean, the English themselves come from southern Scandinavia and northern Germany, so there's already that link, right? Obviously, when England converts to Christianity, with Mercia being the last part of England to do that in the 650s, there's something happening in the connections between the English area and Scandinavia. They get a little more complicated because all of a sudden there's a religious difference between these people. So that probably wasn't that meaningful to talk about before then. And then what we see is if we look at it in terms of archaeology, what we start seeing in the 700s is the spread, speaking of payment, the spread of sketas, these coins, English coins. They're being minted in the English area, and then they start spreading in a trade network in Northern Europe that goes through Scandinavia into the Baltic area. And then we also start seeing different products that are being made in Scandinavia that start showing up in the English area as well. And so these Viking incursions, they are actually probably responses to the breakdown of some of these trade networks for different reasons. Either somebody's imposing a tax somewhere, or we have invasions, and then we start seeing Scandinavians or some Scandinavian lord somewhere who has otherwise been like making a lot of money trading with the English. He's all of a sudden, wait a minute, where's my money? Why is there no trade ships going back and forth any longer? Let me assemble an army and go see what's up. And that's how we probably see those first, like Lindisfarne and so on, those attacks on monasteries, right? Because they already know that there's got to be gold there, right? They have riches at the monasteries and not a lot of soldiers. So that's an easy target. But then we get to a point in the 800s where we have like literal invasion armies that are moving around in the English area. And what happens in the English area? Well, all of a sudden you have this whole new social and economic dynamics based off of war that's happening. This is why we start seeing, fortified towns all of a sudden again. As we're seeing, this is hinted at, or not hinted at, it's like described both in The Last Kingdom. We also see it in Vikings. There's sort of like a renewed interest in historical literature.
No, I don't.
Show.
It is. I'm just kidding.
Of course you are. We see this.
No, but I appreciate the support.
Oh, you got it. I'd only wear a coconut bikini for you.
Oh.
and the patrons apparently.
Obviously, now I kind of feel like I have to join in when you do.
I mean, I'm sure they would not say no. I mean, I'm sure we'd get a bunch more patrons. If you want to do it, we'll help us out.
See, this is one of those moments where you got to decide, is this a worthy cause to invest my time and energy into?
It definitely is. I mean, come on.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I feel like this is a turning point for your career right here. It's a fork in the road.
Yeah,
and
it sounds great. For the next couple of weeks, I'm going to mount a social media campaign for a coconut bikini.
I mean, I would appreciate it, but it's on your head be it.
Sorry, Matthias. What you have to say is way more interesting.
Are you sure about that? I'm pretty sure the the fans out there are probably more interested in the coconut bikini.
They really are as well.
They are very much talking about it.
Oh, that's Alyssa should make it into a charity thing, which I guess would be.
Ooh, now we're talking.
Any reason counts. Just
Support
as long
your
as the
local
coconut
Viking.
bikini comes out.
I'm already signed up for it. I can't get out of it. I gave my word, so I'm already in.
Well, yeah, and then because it's this podcast and I'm like part of it too and everything, then I'm also like I also have to do it. So
Yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy. It goes from Dan having to wear a coconut bikini to everybody else going, actually, you know what? I'll make one too.
I'll do too.
I'll wear one too. I'll come back on the podcast just to wear one.
You're not the only
we
leader
actually
around.
all really want to wear one.
You're not the only leader around here, Alex. Mathias, please do carry on and get us out of this hole.
Okay. So I mean I feel like there's gotta be a Monty Python reference in here somewhere with like the African swallows carrying coconuts to medieval England, right?
Definitely. Absolutely.
Okay, so next thing that happens is that these English lords, they start like fortifying the towns and they start becoming interested in the old literature, especially like Roman literature about, like, for instance, fighting, because they had that's something that's worth looking into now that we got a bunch of like bloodthirsty Scandinavians all over the place. We have the buildup of towns and all of a sudden industry that emerges because of this presence of Scandinavians. We also have a bunch of settling Scandinavians that start farming areas across, well, where Dan is, for instance, and that has a huge impact on the language as well. That's why like so many words that we use in modern English are like direct loans from Scandinavian at the time. And we see also like minting of coins becoming more and more important in demonstrating who rules what place. That's why we always have like somebody's face on a coin, right? And then in turn, all of that stuff starts showing up in Scandinavia. Like the Danes, they probably learn how to fortify their towns from their experiences with the peoples living along the channel, both in the English area, but also we can see some influence from Belgian fortifications from this time period in the 900s in particular. And then what we also see is that those Scandinavian kings, they're like, well, hey, I noticed that over there, the English king puts his face on a coin. I shall do the same thing. And so that's when we actually see the emergence of like real royal power. So every time you see like a mint in a town in this time period in the Viking Age, you will know that this is an important royal town that is well fortified and has all the backing of sort of like, for that time period, a modern monarchy. So essentially what the Viking Age really is like this really dynamic time period in Northwestern Europe, where the interactions between these different peoples, and of course there's a bunch of other peoples involved too, but especially the people in the British Isles and the people in Scandinavia, drives a whole new social development and societal development and economic development that ends up becoming a positive thing for both of them, despite all the fighting. So that's an entirely different take on the Viking Age that I think is quite often forgotten, unfortunately.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. So, when on TV shows, a lot, because it feels like in modern like Viking TV shows, there's a much more emphasis on like the farming side of things, What do you think the
Right.
what do you think the balance was with this? Like how much like just raiding and taking versus like we actually just want to come here and be peaceful and farm and everybody get on? Or was it like we want to farm and get on after we just kind of can't raid anymore because we maybe got beat or for whatever reason? So it's like, oh, well, can we just farm?
We got our asses kicked, so
Yeah,
can we
it's
farm?
like, yeah, like after it's like, okay, let's just come to an agreement and we'll farm rather than turn, because in some, you see on some, it's like it's almost like they turn up and go, let's just make an agreement and farm.
Well, this is actually really, really interesting because just as, you know, if you look at today and how the sensational stuff sells in the press, right? I mean, even though it was on a much smaller scale, surely throughout history, it's always been the same. Like nobody's going to write a book saying, oh, it's been another great day of farming. Whereas, you know, I mean, wonderful, but you're more likely to write a book about a gruesome battle that just took place. So I'm sure there's so much that's gotten lost, so many aspects of that whole relationship between these different peoples that is just lost because nobody bothered to write it down because they just had a good day.
Yeah, I mean, so there are definitely visionaries involved here in the Viking Age, and we can see Rollo being an example of this in Normandy, because he's like, yeah, I'm gonna need some land. And then what we learn, if we read the French sources on him, we learn that he gets a bunch of Scandinavians to show up, and then he partitions land for them. He uses very specific measurements, and they use wheel plow and so on. So it's like that sounds like a visionary, right? If that again, we apply the critical perspective here, we can always ask ourselves, did that actually happen, or is that sort of, you know, a later historian who's like beefing him up a little bit? It probably is to an extent, but also, why would he lie about, you know, him, you know, organizing the land that way? That just seems weird that he would lie about that. And obviously he's not lying about the fact that there is a considerable presence of Scandinavians in Normandy. We know that from place names and vocabulary and so on. So what we can see here is that is an example of somebody who's a visionary, who says, I can now take control over this piece of land, and then people that for some reason or other I am tied to, they get a piece of this land that I just gotten control over. That is the same in England to an extent, right? We see this in what is called the Dane law. And historically, the Dane law is again a pretty iffy subject, because we don't actually know what that law actually meant. We don't see a lot of influence on the local English laws from Scandinavian laws, but on the other hand, our sources to Scandinavian laws are pretty poor at this time period. But is there vocabulary that's like shared? Not really, and so on and so forth. So we actually don't really know what it means that they called that, you know, eastern northern part of what is now modern day England, Dane law. But we do know that there is considerable presence of Scandinavians. There's a ton of place names, linguistic influence, and we also know that various kings at certain times will invoke, you know, the presence of these Scandinavians, usually cast as Danes, but they don't have to necessarily be from the Danish area. They could also be from elsewhere in Scandinavia. They invoke them as a problem, right? It's like pretty similar to what we see sometimes with certain political leaning parties that have opinions about immigrants in Europe to this day, like similar kind of like, oh, there's like too many of these people over here. That's what we see with the dynamics between the English and the Scandinavians in the early thousands, for instance, which is why there's St. Brice's Massacre and all that stuff, right? So yeah, where was I going with this, Dan?
Thinking about coconuts, I bet. Daydreaming about
No,
coconuts.
it's this matter of like, well, are we actually dealing with like an immigration where these people are coming there because they want to farm better land? And that's probably part of it to an extent. But we have to ask ourselves, what is it that initially like generated an exodus from these homelands that they have over there on the other side? And that is something that's still hotly debated. It's also hotly debated whether or not, you know, the Viking Age was like generated because there was an exodus of Scandinavians from Scandinavia. There is something that suggests that there is like a population boom in the Viking Age, because we see these new place names in the Scandinavian region and also in the English region. The Thorpe place names, they mean outlier farms. So that's new farms that are being created in the thousands in particular. That's when they start. And at the same time, we have Scandinavians showing up over there. We have the introduction of the wheel plow in Scandinavia, which will be better for farming, which means that there's more food available, which means that there are more children who survive, which means that there will be probably more people, right? So there's like a bunch of like different factors that come together, and then all of a sudden you see a bunch of people like basically taking land. But did it start with like some guy who was like sitting there on the western coast of Norway going like, this is shitty farmland, I want to go farm someone else and somewhere else, and then I have to like fight my way through it? I don't think so. That comes later with some kind of like population development in the late 900s and early thousands.
You got there in the end.
You got there in the end, yeah. well, I mean, they could have probably just like imported some coconuts. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I wish they had. Okay, Alex, you said you were happy to do 10 minutes like Q&A with kind of the patrons at the end. Yeah, let's try and just fire through some. There's some.
Well, first of all, I feel like I have to thank Matthias, but there's an expression in France which is "Je me coucherai moins con ce soir," which translates into "I'm going to go to bed a little less dumb tonight," and thanks to you, I will.
Oh,
thank you.
I know for a fact that Sophie, one of our people that helps out a lot with the show, just died when you spoke French. So she's French and will have absolutely loved that. So I guarantee you've just made her day.
I wish I'd said something more romantic. Maybe next time.
It's got to be about coconuts, sir.
The noix de coco. Yeah.
There we go. All right, I'm gonna just fly through. We'll pick some. There's some serious ones. There's some sillier ones. Let's see.
Okay, start with the silly one.
Okay, Sophie always asks as well, what would your Hogwarts house be? Now, Arnis slipped up and showed that he didn't actually watch Harry Potter. So, are you a Harry Potter fan? Can you pick a house?
I have definitely watched it. I'm not a huge fan, not that I don't like it, but I don't know. I didn't get into it. Just with drinking, like I never got into it.
Yeah.
So
you can say
I am
if you
digging
want,
a hole for myself, comparing watching Harry Potter to being an alcoholic, and I think I'm done.
So okay, there we go. I feel like
okay. Give me the choices. There's Gryffindor. There's
Slytherin. They're the evil ones. You're not one of them. That's there's Hufflepuff, I think.
Hufflepuff. Hufflepuff sounds like a cereal brand.
Yes,
it does.
And
it sounds like you'd be eating a lot of cookies and cakes, and maybe Hufflepuff is the one. What else is there?
And Ravenclaw.
Ravenclaw sounds badass.
It does. Yeah.
Without being evil. Yeah.
Without being evil. Yeah.
Let's just make
I feel like you'd be Ravenclaw, Dan.
We'll make our own Hogwarts house. The cockatiers.
I like
There you go.
The what now?
The cockatiers.
The
I don't know. I tried to come up with it on the fly. That was the best.
Cockatiers.
That's the
That's
best
it.
I had with a millisecond. That's the best my brain could come up with in that moment. All right. Fuck's sake. All right. Where was the toughest place to film? I guess maybe toughness on your body. Or
Hold on,
mentally, I
where's
guess?
the toughest place to film?
Yeah, I think they mean geographically, like weather-wise, perhaps.
Filming a battle in the snow is pretty tough because you start at the beginning of the day and you're in this gorgeous snow-covered field and there's like 200 people walking around in the field, and after about an hour the whole field is turned into mud, and then you start shooting and undoubtedly you go down at some point because you're filming a battle, and then you're wet, and then you're just cold. There's nothing to heat you up. That's a shitty place to film, but it's also fun. Bit of mud wrestling.
Oh, mud wrestling, coconut bikinis. What an episode!
Oh, in
They
the
would
snow.
No, everybody get that.
Okay, I see a plot forming.
When we reach
We're,
Get that out
we're
of your
getting
mind.
somewhere now. We're
350.
getting somewhere.
If we hit 500 patrons, then we'll mud wrestle, and Alex has come in. So we're gonna meet. It's gonna be us three in a
Dan,
little pool.
you're like halfway to 500. What are these things you promise to people?
Yeah, man. Like
Halfway to 500 patrons. That's
I-
not going to take that long.
I like to give back to the people. Obviously, I'm a giver.
alrighty.
All right. I'm just gonna pick different ones. I can't ask what animal you'd fight, but what's
I'd
the
fight a-
Oh, I
I'd
forgot
fight
that
a puppy.
conversation about that.
I'd fight a puppy
no
with big puppy eyes. Why would I say I'd fight a tiger or a lion? No, I'd fight a puppy.
I'd fight it with cuddles. That's what I'd do. Just all the love. All right. Alyssa asked, "How did you get into acting?"
Oh, how did I get into acting? I made little home videos with my cousin reenacting scenes from movies that we liked.
I need to see these.
Yes.
Yeah, I need to find them. They're somewhere, and they could definitely end my career. Then I loved Shakespeare when I was in high school. And it kind of, I don't know, I kind of just always knew that that's what I wanted to do. I guess naively, I just thought that was possible, and thank God I didn't think about it too much.
So what would you have been if you weren't an actor?
There was the point where I was seriously interested in architecture.
Oh, cool.
Always loved architecture. Yeah. And I think, that's something realistic. I obviously also wanted to be an astronaut at one point and a surgeon. I thought about being a surgeon. My brother is a trauma surgeon now. But my dad's a doctor, and my stepmom's a doctor, and she took me to see an open heart surgery one day, and that was the day where I knew I was not going to be a surgeon.
Fair enough.
I mean, what a family. Very talented family you got there. All right. What's your favorite hobby? Or I guess, do you have any things you particularly like to do in your downtime?
My favorite hobby, that feels like it should be followed with, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite furry animal?
Oh
my
What's
God,
your
my
favorite
hobby.
dish?
I mean, we got to get down to the nitty gritty here. We're asking the hard hitting questions.
give me some tough questions. Give me some nasty questions.
I don't think anyone can be. Oh, okay, yeah, that's one. Team Dane, which is Matthias, or Team Saxon, which is me. Who do you like better? And the answer is only me.
What are you guys wearing? What are you guys wearing? Give me the picture.
Oh, if we were fat coconut bikini, of course.
Coconut bikinis.
Of course. What? There was only one answer to that question.
And a fruit hat for me. We're gonna have to have a fruit hat.
Can we all get together? Can we fight it out? Let's fight it out.
Sure.
In
Okay.
mud.
Yes.
That's what we're gonna have to do. That's the only way to.
Okay.
That's the only way to
Next
solve
question.
any argument. Were you interested in this subject before being cast as Uhtred? Did you have an underlying?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was interested in Vikings. I was interested in pirates. Very much interested in pirates. When I was a kid in kindergarten, my favorite T-shirt was a T-shirt with a pirate on it, and I remember going to kindergarten the first day wearing that T-shirt, and I was so excited and so proud to be wearing it. And then I got beat up for wearing a pirate T-shirt. I never really understood why.
Kids can be dicks.
Kids suck.
They're just dicks, man.
Yeah.
They just suck.
But look at you now. Look at you now, eh? Now who had the last laugh? They should have had a fucking pirate T-shirt.
There you go. That was the move.
Pirates are pretty cool. I mean, like they just think about what they did in the Caribbean, like Pirates of the Caribbean, not the movie, but the actual ones. They were like, screw this, let's make a republic. Long before anybody made a republic, like that happened. So pirates are pretty cool. Yeah.
Did you guys see that show? That Taika did. What's it called? Our Flag Means Death.
No.
It's so good. It's so much fun. It's
Yeah?
so much fun.
Okay,
It's
wait.
really camp, but so much fun. One of my favorite feel-good shows that I've seen in the last couple of months.
Definitely gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
All right, last one, and then we'll wrap it up. Kevin wanted to know about the accent that you used for the show. Like, did you come up with that? Did you choose it? Did they tell you to? And can we get like a little bit of Destiny is all to finish the wrap up?
Of course you can. So the accent was something that we wanted Uhtred to have a different accent to everybody else, because he was kind of between two camps, and the idea was to use like a British base and then with a Scandinavian twist to it. It's a totally made up accent, and I think a lot of the intonations and the kind of melody of it is something that evolved organically. I lived in Switzerland for a while when I was growing up, and there is like a natural sort of melody to that language, and I think some of that just made sense to marry into it. But it's a made-up accent, and Destiny is all okay. Let me give you the spiel. I am Uhtred, son of Uhtred. Destiny is all.
Oh, there we go.
Wonderful.
That's all we need. All right, Alex, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. I know you're a busy man. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a 5-star rating, positive review. If you want to get on the bandwagon of the Coconut Bikini, pop over to Non-Audio Mythology Podcast on Patreon. You can help support us for literally the price of a cup of coffee for me and Matthias once a month. That's it. We've just employed somebody to do our social media for us. We're going to start putting out a load of TikTok videos, Instagram videos, and really try and take this to the next level. Get those
TikTok videos.
Well,
So we're going to be dancing in coconut bikinis.
You got to do what you got to do, Alex, these days. Got to stay present. Obviously everyone knows already where to find you. Matthias, where can people find yourself?
Yeah, just put in my name
The
on
mud
Instagram. In the mud pit, yes. Put my name in on Instagram, and you'll find my weird Instagram account. That's where you can find me. Thank you so much for joining us, Alex. This was so much fun.
It was really fun. I had a great time. And let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're welcome back anytime. Hopefully it's not 2 years next time. But yeah, hopefully around the movie, let's try set something up and get some
Yeah, sounds
That would be
good.
cool.
some coconut bikini
Let's
sorted.
let's talk about the Battle of Brunanburg.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
yes.
Right subject.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
we can definitely do that.
I love
Perfect.
that. Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Have a good day because you're in the other side of the world right now. So it's morning time.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. It was really nice to be there.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
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 See you later.